critters of the barracks. Early this morning, 2 hours before sunrise, I stepped out into a fog so thick that it echoed. A tawny owl cried out 3-4 times, then stillness as complete as the blackness that surrounded it. The heavy air against the skin, the feeling that something's coming, the heavens resting heavily on the ground, wild with the potential of spring, determined to force a surrender from winter. "Show us what you've got left," it shouted into the night. No answer, of course. Winter always stands mute. The dark season, detached, obstinate, and forever refusing to answer charges. Not guilty, entered in absentia. Spring, when it comes, bursts into the silence with 1,000 conversations over each other. Life. The voices of imminent abundance aren't here yet, but if you listen closely, you can make out whispers of passion on the wind, sotto voce murmurs of Demeter's joy returning to the world. I started reading Dante's Inferno this week. These are the first words. Our narrator, it appears, is a middle-aged traveller who is lost. I've spent way too much time this week in contemplation of this first line. Specifically, the verb. To come away from a path is to lose the path. Does this imply that it's been left forever? The path, being the one that does not stray, would appear to be the better one, the truer one. Knowing what we all know about Inferno, in this context it implies the godly or biblical one. But in a greater sense, does the lost path have to imply a worse route taken? In most senses of the word, lost means a thing that can be found again. If you lost your keys, your wallet, you would go looking for them. But lost most definitely can mean gone forever, unrecoverable. We use it for lost youth, lost innocence, usually with an implied regret, or at least an invented nostalgia. But youth may have been disturbingly complex and confusing, continuum of contradictions, questions insufficiently answered. Age and experience weathered the jagged vertices of our interactions with life, maybe not smoothing it to a mirrored surface, but sufficiently to reflect a degree of clarity and understanding. We may have knowingly, willingly handed our innocence over to good causes. What can be called a loss might just be a life marker, a calendar entry without implied regret, created deliberately, not put down and forgotten. The lost path might be equally intentional. Stepping away from the protective security of the known is de facto going to end up with the traveller in places unknowable. That is the point. And de jure surrounded by wolves. Anyway, after reading the first line, I think I'm going to enjoy Inferno more than maybe you're supposed to. I've been glad for the constant fog of the week. When I have so much writing to do and so many exciting new books to read, it can only be helpful to really not want to go outside. The strongest indication that I have deadlines looming is that I cleaned the terrazzo tiles of the loft kitchen, probably for the first time ever. They were very dirty, and though they're not quite shining, I need to save that job for another time when I need more excuses to avoid things. But it is looking rather nice in there. A good place to eat potatoes. After looking about, realising that I'd been avoidant of the keyboard, I made a seed table. This wasn't quite as spontaneous as it sounds, and while I was doing it, not only was I not writing, but I did to my embarrassment, find myself thinking at least once, I'm a bad content creator. I should be making a reel or something. But then I realised that people making things on the internet are actually, for the most part, incredibly skilled and entertaining, and the half-hour bodged job process of making a seed table is not a thing that needs to be shared with the public at large. Here's a photo of it, though. I haven't started sowing just yet, but I think this week I can risk some of the earliest selection, those which need a longer growing season than I can naturally offer them, peppers, chilies and aubergines. I will let you know in due course. Building the table was enjoyable, and it really didn't take more than an hour, including faff. I have to say this not because it's true, which it is, but because my editor reads this, and he'll be cross with me if he thinks I've only been having fun. Making things at the Barracks is somewhat like one of those factory building games that are quite popular on the internet. You spend the vast majority of the game accumulating raw materials, gathering them into massive stores, accessible and prepared, waiting to burst out of their holding bins, and ready to be put all to a good use. Half of the woodshop, a large space indeed, is now full from floor to ceiling with bales of straw, planks for 60 huge bookshelves, 24 old windows in PVC, metal and wood, all of unique sizes, scores of 2x4s and 4x4s, a forest of oak stems, 2 barrels of oil, 4 dozen OSB boards, rolls of underfloor heating conduit, insulated pipes, a huge quantity of felt, 50 square metres of expanded polystyrene boards, and a roll of rubber pond liner. The other half contains almost all the tools I need to cut, trim, drill, plane, reassemble, sand and polish the collection into new and functional things. I don't have a lathe yet, maybe one day. Just outside the woodshop doors are piles and piles of house bricks. We have achieved the point of whimsical makery. If time allows, there is now not a whole lot of rough and raw projects that can't be knocked up when the mood seizes. Running out of excuses not to clickety-clack at the face of the computer monitor, I realised that I needed to learn more about the beasties that live in the dirt beneath our feet. My editor has asked me to expand the section about the how and why and what and when of soil. A bad decision. I was supposed to be creating a book of many topics, but I'm so obsessed with Earth I'm pretty sure I could do 60,000 words on that alone. It seemed like a good idea to take a quick detour into the life of invertebrates, which meant I accidentally watched a couple of hour-long lectures on the YouTubes and read a few chapters of a book that's been on my wish list for years, but I found a digital copy of. A 2-volume thing called Insect Biodiversity. It's awesome, and it's over €200. Not today, sadly, Mr. Bookseller. But somehow, I got some words on the screen, along with some more on Savoy cabbages, and they're all okay for now. Sadly, I'm also supposed to write something on the whole why of this lifetime performance art piece that I appear to have gotten myself into. This was the bit that I wanted to write last, but I do understand why it would be helpful also to have it now. It is an important and interesting question, and one that I might know in my bones, but I've also always had difficulty expressing. It feels more like a deathbed confession than a helpful thing to share with other people while I'm still alive. Essentially, we humans are storytellers. Telling the stories of other people is an act of remembrance. Repeating our memories of a person keeps them alive. They do not decay, cat in a box like, into a known form, but are maintained in the histories of them. It involves us in their lives. The tales of their significance is cathartic not just for us, but for those around us as well. Stories are nothing but the sharing of experience that we might not have actually been present for, but the renewed pathways of words in the air are the only things that give us new perspectives. The ability to create new anecdotes does not end with losing the path of a person. We have said this many times, and to repeat it does not diminish it. No one is self-sufficient. Sometimes we can be rather harshly reminded of this fact. Having people around you with whom you can share stories is essential to human functioning. Telling your own stories is weird. We shouldn't be the keepers of our own mythology, or the verbal transient embodiment of who we are. The act of storytelling is to say, this person was important, and I'm being asked to tell my own story. I don't like it at all. And I ask that when you do come to read what I've written, you treat it as I do. I'm playing a part, fulfilling a role. And the best I can do is to put on the skin of someone else and try to look on the pirate as a third person. He's been called a Lebenskünstler more than once, and never as a compliment, although he chooses to take it as one. It is a wonderful German word, which sits comfortably at the intersection of bon vivant, dilettante, and slacker. How can that not be a shopping list of aspirations? Anyway, I think I'm losing the thread, and this newsletter feels like it has way more than 10 minutes to go. But I have to read it back to myself and to those of you who like to click the audio button. So I shall wish you all a fine week and hope you have the chance to make new stories with many players. All my parity love, your loving pirate Ben. XO, XO.